afternoon. My name's Pete Saronis, CEO of Dots and Bridges. I'm here with my colleague, Tony Vicinelli, Federal Technical Director for Enlight Software, and we're excited to kick off our Critical Infrastructure webinar series, where we're going to basically dialogue a bit about the data center, the role it plays across our ever-expanding critical infrastructure sectors. We'll get into that. We'll make sure we don't speak too much Greek to our folks, and at the same time, hear a bit from Tony, a thought leader, a change agent, on how Enlight is not only assisting the federal government, but also the commercial sector to build out the data center and treat it as critical infrastructure beyond the sectors that are defined by our Department of Homeland Security. So Tony, why don't we start with just tell us a little bit about yourself, cool hair and everything.
Yeah, I'm the Federal Technology Director for Enlight Software. We have been, in this space for a long time, and we've seen it grow and seen it change in a number of different ways. So starting out as a data center infrastructure management, in the data center infrastructure management space, that was a very defined role for us for a long time. But as we started to evolve, as we started to get a larger customer base and see the challenges that they were facing, that grew into a much larger set of problems that we're able to solve. So,
well, let me jump in. So you used the word data center information management, DSIM. That's a term that I know inside the Beltway. And again, for the listening audience, I walked the walk a bit in the federal space for 25 years. Tony, who is, like I mentioned, someone who understands the technology space of it. There's a lot of terminology we may use if you're not familiar with the Beltway. But DSIM, Tony, why don't you talk a little bit about what kicked off that initiative under the Data Center Optimization Initiative and how Enlight, elevated itself to be one of the market leaders?
Yeah, I mean, the challenges that face the federal government to be able to not only consolidate their data centers, right? So first starting with consolidation of let's have less data centers, right? Not more than we need. Reduce the footprint, right? But then also to say, well, now since we've reduced that, let's optimize what we have. And so let's optimize inside those four walls as best we can. As we know, right, that has changed as far as it's not just inside those four walls, but then how do we adopt cloud smart into that equation, right? How do we say where is it best to have workloads and applications running locally inside of our data centers, as well as move to the cloud and then decide how that happens in between. Right?
So let's break a little bit of that down, because I like to think of it as you've got the data center, which most people drive by one of those in Ashburn, Virginia, or wherever they are, and it's this big facility, or it looks like a building. But there's a lot of ping power pipe, right, that goes into that. But data centers leverage the cloud, right?
Yeah, data centers are the cloud, right? The data centers are the cloud. And so that definition there's grayness in that now, right? Where what is the data center and where does it live? Well, it's all of those things, right? It's a thing that I own and the thing the building that I'm in, but it all is also a set of services and that live somewhere else. So it can be all of those things.
So I recall back in 2009 when the cloud, let's kind of break this down a bit more. There's a chronology in government. In 2009, I recall and remember that cloud computing became a thing. And I'm dating myself, so yes, I'm 52. But back then, when it was ushered in, it was a concept that, to your point just now, already kind of existed. Maybe it was called something else, but data centers existed, right, Tony? And let's just skip to the cloud became a way to efficiently manage your workloads, or as you say, a lot of your data and infrastructure in this environment that arguably is why Google and Microsoft and Amazon and others are now cloud service providers. But the one constant that I think about is that, here's the data center that's existed, then it exists now. And we have terms like hybrid cloud, community cloud, on-prem, off-prem. Can you kind of just sort of, for our audience again, don't forget that, Nlight software is powering a lot of that data, and we'll get to that. But just to set the stage for the one constant has been the need for a data center. And that's why, correct me if I'm wrong, Nlight views it as one of the most critical components of the infrastructure in our country.
100%, right? It is. You think about how often that you rely on the services that are provided by the data center, however you would want to define it, as whether it is the building that you're sitting inside or the services that are provided by one of those cloud service providers or SaaS solutions that you're using. Those live in a building somewhere that need to be managed, and they need to be optimized as best as possible, right? So the critical infrastructure that is the data center has been something that, if you look at the data, if you look at the telemetry that's available coming out, sort of emanating off of the data center, that is ripe for us to be able to capture, analyze, and then do some amazing things as far as not only optimizing it for, are we using it, cost effectively, but are we using it so we're reducing the risk to the service, or the service that we're trying to provide, right?
So let's distill that down, because those of you, I didn't really give too much background, and Tony, I know you know this, but I used to consider myself the connective tissue officer in the government, connecting dots and building bridges. And yes, my favorite color is orange. And we talked a bit, or you just referenced a bit, so we can crawl, walk, run here as we tell this story.
Yeah.
If we could all agree, right, that the data center is critically important to the operations of businesses, economy, and now that the cloud is an opportunity to build maybe a bit more resilience and availability into it. You mentioned data. You mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, a bit of the amount of information that traverses that ping power pipe. Nlight software, right? Not a plug per se, but what makes you special, like every tech company feels a value proposition. You do some really interesting things with that data in a world where actionable and applied intelligence, whether it's through AI or machine learning, and I know you'll get to that. Talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from coming from a company that, hey, we're there to keep the operations efficient and running on power utilization, to mitigating some of that risk because we don't want to compromise the data of your customers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the data center itself is just a natural place for us it's sensor rich, right? So you have tons of ability to monitor the data that's coming from it, right? So monitoring that, and we use data as this general term, but you think of all the connections and relationships to the disparate sets of data that are coming from the data center, right? So standing back from it, it looks like there may be very, very separate groups that the data is not related. But as we start to collect it, as we start to consolidate it, we see the relations. There are relationships between facilities, IT services that if they are sharing them, if they're being collected, and like you mentioned, if you look at analyzing them, not just through AI or machine learning, but just data science, just data analytics of a person being able to look in one place and speak one language across these many, many different groups, the opportunities to not only optimize, but reduce risk, provide better services to our customers, customers as someone that may be managing a data center, providing better services to our customers. So the opportunities are immense.
Right. So you're hitting on the concept, if I'm not mistaken, that is dashboarding for the C-level. I'm thinking dashboarding for the folks that work in the basement, or as I used to say, a lot of my colleagues that were the propeller heads, who I think is an extreme compliment for those of you out there, the gearheads. Yeah. But it's different views and different optics. What are some of the visualizations, if you will. Because again, viewing audience, data with meaning is called information. So when Tony and I are talking a bit about raw data becoming that actionable or that insightful piece of information to make a decision on whether or not to pivot your data center operations from a site or going, I'd ask that you blend a little bit of, yes, we agree that the data centers become more mature. Companies like yours are now providing that opportunity to dashboard. What are some of the capabilities, though, that distinguish your platform that maybe you can reference a few use cases, be it in commercial or federal? So
yeah, I mean, when I started, when I started working in this space, I sort of had a concept of what type of data was going to be relevant, right? As far as um, as far as
meaningful data, I mean, that matters to the customer.
Well, yeah, that matters to the customer, but there's so many different disciplines in that data, right? So if I'm looking at how does data affect someone at the application level, right? So how does the data we provide someone that is responsible for an application, or responsible for a server, or responsible for the UPS that runs the data center, right? So those are very, very different people that need that data in different ways. So a dashboard might show us something that is relevant to a manager at a site. So basically, from the site level to the rack level, we want to be able to show that we're understanding. And then across multiple sites, and then across multiple systems, that might be sort of a cross section of that data across multiple geographic sites, right? So being able to understand that from all those different perspectives, all those different dimensions, that's real data analytics. And it's not always as simple as a red or green light, right? It's like, is it good or bad? Sometimes it's that, but other times it's, what questions can I ask this data to get the information that I need to be effective?
So
how, and if I could finish, let me make sure that I'm capturing it all in a way that I can ask those questions to get the best answers out.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going. Forgive me for interrupting. It was, we're moving into the intuition of the human or the brain that is still needed. You can automate process, you can automate workloads, we can have a robot, a machine run 24/7, right? The days of the operator who works on shifts in a data center still are there. But the beautiful thing of having this information that is, be it through artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithm, providing a lot of that intelligence, we still need to be able to look at it and make decisions about, wow, this may mean something that is prescriptive in nature or predictive.
Yes.
And that dialogue, which is what I hear, at least in from my seat, pretty unique. And can you talk a little bit about maybe some examples of that, or some of the relationship you have with IBM Watson, where you're building your product to be more communicative as a technology, but also still needing that intelligence, be it human or robotic.
Yeah, I think that's part of what, so definitely, our relationship with IBM Watson has really educated me on what I thought artificial intelligence and machine learning was, right? What is it? Sort of, what can I expect to get out of it? And it's really, sometimes it is an interaction with the data, right? It is an interaction of, can I ask it the questions that I need, that I already know to ask? And then sometimes when it's really kind of astonishing is whenever it's giving you things and patterns that it's recognizing that you did not know were there. So if you look at sort of predictive maintenance, right, things that I can, based off of trends that have happened, I know will happen in the future or are likely to happen in the future. You've got predictive failure, which are based off of a multivariate environment of all of these different factors that as a human being, I couldn't possibly take all of those in and start to see patterns and transform. That would say, the likelihood of a failure in the environment of what we're seeing is going to be this, and it's going to happen in the future, right? It's going to happen in a set time in the future and giving me time to react to that. Optimizations that we wouldn't be able to see, so facility optimizations that we would never be able to see because just as a human being couldn't be able to, aren't able to be able to take in that much data, but then can respond in kind based off of the suggestions that are made by the AI. And then, some of the very coolest things that we're seeing coming out of the data. So we sit at a confluence of all the data from, as I mentioned, application or the IT side of the house and the facility side of the house is anomaly detection. So being able to see things that are, the unseen risk, right? The thing that I don't know, or the thing that I don't know to look for, to even ask for, the AI can present it to me and say, is this important to you?
Yeah, it's
and
like
then I can make that decision.
The known knowns, that's easy, and you can make decisions. It's those unknown unknowns that can be brought to light. I'm saying using on a recording, but I really would like you to expound, because I think, at least in our discussions prior to kicking off the series, this journey that you're on, obviously,
that
Nlight's on, you started off with, hey, there was an opportunity in the federal government moving to the cloud, moving to optimizing data centers. If you could talk a little bit, again, as an educator, to the audience on, if the data center is what it is and people can conceptualize that, the cloud is obviously a platform or a service providing a framework for folks to communicate. There is in the public sector inside the Beltway, a lot, and there has been a history of data center optimization to cloud smart. Can you kind of walk us through that evolution over the past couple of years? Because I would imagine your visioning and thought leadership when you call on your customers and clients is you have to lean on that and say, here's where we were to satisfy a compliance need, an agency environment through the laws of FITARA and so forth. But now look what you're looking and trying to do, to keep that continuous improvement cycle moving. Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, I think whenever the customers are always educating me about these things as well, right? They're saying, when we started with the data center optimization initiative as a first stroke at like, how do we improve? There were set goals there. And of course, whenever we went and talked to customers about that, they had awesome feedback of what was right, what was good, what was wrong, what could be changed, improved. And we're seeing that happen as part of some of these other pieces that are coming out of it. So we talk about cloud smart and application rationalization as the other two legs of that stool. How do we make sure that we're optimizing our data centers as best we can, but then leveraging some of the other these other initiatives to just have better services, better IT service, be better IT service providers. So whenever we look at the cloud smart, that allows us to say, well, based off of the services that I'm trying to deliver and different considerations, right? Considerations that are cost, considerations that are risk, whether they're availability risk or there may be a security risk based off of the data that I have, depending on my what my agency is or my role is, those are all going to be different. They'll be different for different folks. And so the maturation of this has been that people can then start to apply those different considerations as inside of this framework, right? And say, well, for me, this is why I am able to move certain services to the cloud and other ones need to stay on-prem. And you said it just the right way, where this is a continuous improvement, right? It's kind of like someone described it as, a life cycle, but a life cycle that is sort of moving up and to the right? That we're seeing improvements through each of those iterations. So there's a defined process there that sort of getting a situational awareness of where you are, gathering data, assessing, and then fixing the problem and moving forward, right?
So yes, and well stated, and thank you for that, because a few times you've used the word risk, a few times just recently used situational awareness, and I'm seeing in my personal journey, my professional journey, and I saw this a lot in government, is there's always a new mandate, there's an evolution of technology. I think with the phrase "tech is never the problem" is often forgotten when it's out in a very crowded market. You still have to make that differentiation, and clearly, I'm sure whether on this call you can highlight, and you do this quite often when you meet with your customers about, what makes Enlight special, and your ability to meet the needs of the government beyond compliance. Phrases like application rationalization come to mind, the ability to make sure you have the most current infrastructure applications and so forth to keep your operations running in a manner. Because that introduces risk, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about the risk component that Enlight is aligning to its messaging to not only help government meet the mail, but also, hey, we're adopting a future state that is rooted in all of this information at our fingertips, or their fingertips.
Yeah. Well, we feel we sit in a unique place, right? We're one place where all of this data comes together. That's one thing, right? That it's all in one place. But then you can start to draw relationships between how does something on the floor where the temperature is getting hotter ultimately affect the service that's being delivered to the end customer, and all of the connections in between, and the likelihood of those things being disrupted along the way. There's a ton of data and a lot of interconnected tissue in there that you need to be able to understand to help make those decisions. And we feel we sit in a place where all of that data is being gathered at once and analyzed, and the ability to analyze, that's what makes us unique. Whereas we're not sort of just myopically focused on just monitoring power. That's where we started, right? Or we started from a capacity planning standpoint. But to start to answer questions like, will I be in danger of violating my SLA because I'm growing too fast in my colo facility? What should I do, right?
Yeah, so you're an acronym freak. So SLA,
I'm sorry.
Service level agreement.
Sorry.
Co-location. No, I'm just trying to keep it real for you keep listening, right? No, especially in times that are that are changing, right? Times of unknown risk, things that we did not foresee or seemed like what we're going through right now with a coronavirus and COVID and those types of things. People that thought they would have access to their co-location facilities, they may be denied access to those things, and so now they need to reevaluate or reassess. What is our plan for getting access to delivering the service, or having some automated features to mitigate the risk that's been posed for us. Yeah, you're hitting on these, what I like to call the cyber risks, the physical risk. There's obviously workforce risk, because workforce, whether it's learning to analyze analytics in a remote location, not in a facility where you don't have to go to the office. You mentioned the red, yellow, green. We're a ubiquitously connected world, as we both know. And yes, the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic, represents just another challenge that our country and our world faces, even in separate instances. Katrina, Superstorm Sandy. I like to reference these really tough times in our country's history, our fabric. And it really brings to light how technology was probably deemed a last thought. Should we upgrade? Should we migrate to the next version? And I feel that, having been sold to for so many years in government, when folks like Tony, you come in, and maybe this is where we can pivot to some of that dialogue that you wish could happen more when you're not selling, but informing. You go to agencies to say, look, you could either take the late adopter or preventative measure to say something bad will happen. There will be breach. There will be, as you say, it could be a tornado. That and the resilience of the critical infrastructure data center is something you want to be monitoring. And again, I would hate to leave today's session without you kind of talking a bit just about your vision and where you are excited about where your company's going in terms of that, not just constantly evolving, but preparation for the next challenge. Can you speak to what you're excited about most, what Enlight's developing, behind closed doors without trade secrets?
Yeah, I mean, the world of AI and ML has opened our eyes to what is possible from the data that we're gathering already, right? So customers that have been with us for a while have had this treasure trove of information, and we're able to, well, first we present them with a number of patterns that are already developed as far as AI and machine learning. So predictive failure, predictive temperature spikes, power spikes, things like that. They're pretty, boilerplate as far as things that people would want. But what's really exciting is as we get in and start to talk to our customers is the use cases. When you start to listen to your, the voice of the customer to say, what is important to you? Which things do you wish that you could see? What are the challenges that you have or would like to see? When you start to develop those use cases, and that's what we're seeing as we start to roll out, the first iteration of, well, let's leverage the data that you've been gathering for, 2 years straight of power information, and you're able to see, predictive analysis based off of that. But then the customer was like, yeah, that's great, but what if you could show me this? I've got this data. Can you bring that in? Yeah, let's do that, right? So those are the really exciting things is the use cases for AI that are coming out of that. From that, what we're seeing is the ability then to add automated change or adaptation to your data center. So imagine being able to say, based off of maybe some of those criteria of either risk or cost, or to say, let's move, because this, kind of is these gray areas of where is my data center, the services are private. Let's move my workloads from on-prem to the cloud to back to the cloud again, right? Based off of those considerations, based off of those variables or whatever the world's throwing at me at that point.
So I just, again, light bulb moment that, you're articulating so well that behind the scenes, when you see that dashboard, when you see the presentation of information, value, a lot's going on back and forth potentially between a cloud and an on-prem site, traversing the telecommunication wires.
Yeah.
So it's always risk. And I think we know that. I mean, God forbid our Wi-Fi connection goes out, then we're that would suck. But I think the idea and understanding that, some of the most, the conventional ways that communication occurs, wired or wireless, those are options in our world, are still in play. But the resilience and presentation of data and you bringing to light, and we've had a lot of these chats, Tony, which I find to be part of the story of Enlight, is what makes you unique or differentiates you is your constant watch for something could happen here. You're never going to eliminate the risk, right? But
that's right.
Mitigate it. I think your risk mitigation approach, just for what it's worth, is compelling and impressive, and something that I would encourage you to keep doing and sharing that with your customers, because not everybody knows what happens when they hit send on their email.
Yeah. Well, and we like to try to, you get sometimes very, very locked into the day-to-day, right? But we always like to go out to our customers, in times where we can say, tell us what your challenges are. Let's try to understand those, and let's show you what we've been working on, sort of like you said, in the lab, right? Of things that we feel like we're going in the right direction. But sometimes, the customers are the best, the guides there, where they're like, yeah, that's good, but you got half of it. We need this piece, right? And going out and being able to talk to our customers, talk to thought leaders like you as well, that are able to go out and see things from throughout the entire, not just the data center, but as we move into the world of, more highly connected Internet of Things, smart cities, right? Those are things that we're able to, let's have an eye looking that direction as well, because the lines are being blurred between all of these things, right? IT lives everywhere, data centers are everywhere, right? More things are moving now back out to the edge, not just to the data center. So we moved it inside. Now things are moving back out to the edge. So yeah, I mean, we're hoping our customers can guide us there, and we can continue to have a partnership with what we see and what they see.
Well, listen, we're gonna save some of that for our future series discussions, because we're coming up on the parting shot. So while you think about your parting shot, I'm going to offer to our audience a little bit of an encapsulation of what we hoped to get across today. And that is, we want this to be our data center as critical infrastructure webinar series. I'm actually honored and happy to be helping at least guide the discussion. But the constant evolution is one point. Understanding a little bit about what's a data center, what it's not, why it's important, the sectors. And again, we didn't get too much into that, but here's the snippet. There are 16 critical infrastructure sectors in our country. You can go to dhs.gov/critical infrastructure and see them. Data centers are what connects those sectors from a technology standpoint. And as we build out our series, we'd love obviously to hear from our audience about specific topics, and probably, I think, Tony, bring in a thought leader or two from be it government or industry to kind of have the dialogue about how at least your platform is allowing them to improve operations and garner some of the capabilities. So
that's where we really hope to get to make sure that we have our customers talking about their experience, but then also the challenges that they see. Also, anybody that would want more information or has feedback about things that they would like to hear us talk about or have insights on, I'd encourage that. You can go to nlight.com to get more information or to provide feedback for other things that you would like to see in this series. Because just like our roadmap is driven by our customers, we'd like these types of discussion to be driven as well.
Well, great. So that doesn't count as your parting shot. So
okay.
I'll give you your 30 seconds on what do you want to leave today, because while we want to build on it, what is the thing that either you wish I would have asked you, or what somebody doesn't know about your company culture that you think's just powerful, and what keeps you wanting to get up every day and work for nLight?
Oh wow. Well, I feel very lucky to be in a space where it is constantly changing, growing, and we're able to actually provide a really, really useful tool to our customers. I can see it working every day. That's actually making people's jobs easier and making them more effective. Right? I mean, that's kind of a simple way to put it, but it is. You don't always get that opportunity, right? You don't always have that opportunity in jobs that you have where you can say, wow, we can really make a difference here as far as people that are doing their jobs and delivering something, especially to our federal customers. That can be a challenging environment, right?
Well,
so yeah.
No, good stuff. And my parting shot is, thank you for your storytelling. I think that when we can do storytelling and translation, connect some dots, build a few bridges of people, we touch base on, or we should say, I like to say, we try to triage where technology and humanity and culture come together. And I applaud you for your leadership, and I look forward to our next series. So with that, thank you to everybody. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for the opportunity. And we look forward to our next webinar series on data center as critical infrastructure.